What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Same Old Everton. And this evening, we are doing our season preview for the 22-23 Premier League campaign with Everton. And for this season preview, I thought because this would be quite a lengthy one, I'd bring on a very special guest in Kieran. I'm sure many of you know who he is. How are you doing, Kieran?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I mean, actual personal life's fine, but when it comes to talking about Everton, I'm a little bit shaky. I'm not going to lie. So,
Yeah.
I'm doing sound. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much. But I've brought on Kieran because obviously he's a fellow Everton supporter. He knows Everton well. I think he could give some good insight over the next half hour that we're speaking regarding Everton. And we've kind of gone with this, we don't really know what we're going to be speaking of. Of course, there's quite a lot of things to go over. And I'm going to start this by asking Kieran. All right, are you ready for the important question that I think's worth dwelling over?
Okay, go on.
So obviously we've had this transfer window, and yes, there's still a few weeks left in this transfer window, but preseason's over. We've had a mixed preseason, and we'll speak about that as well later on. But the Premier League campaign slowly approaching. The Premier League campaign starts in just 2 days' time. For Everton, it starts on Saturday, hosting Chelsea at Goodison Park. The simple question is, do you think Everton are well and truly ready? What do you think?
No, but
Right.
but we're not going to get relegated. It depends what you mean by ready. Have we got a team that will avoid relegation? Yes. So yes, we are ready. Are we ready for the season though? And if this was a year ago, would I think we were ready? Absolutely not. So I'm going to go on and say no. Okay.
Yes. So what I mean by ready is that have we got the squad well organized, well prepared ahead of this match against Chelsea? And to be honest, I knew what your answer was going to be from the very beginning. It's a simple no. And I don't think any Everton supporter, unless they've been living under a rock for the last few weeks, can really disagree with what you've just said. Because, well and truly, as we slowly approach this match against Chelsea, I don't see us being well prepared. And there's a few reasons for that, but we can start off with the transfer window, for example, because that's been obviously something that Everton supporters have been really concerned over. After our 4-0 loss to Minnesota United, there was very little transfer activity. It didn't seem as though we were going to be doing much transfer activity. James Tarkowski up to that point in preseason was our only signing, and things were looking very bleak. We've seen the departure of Richarlison. We've gotten rid of some of the deadwood, which is a good side of the transfer window up to this point. But up to that point against Minnesota United, we were very poorly prepared. And how do you think this transfer window so far? There's still a few weeks left, and Everton are still being linked with every name under the moon at this point. But up to this point, what do you make of the transfer window we've had so far?
So, it's hard to say because I think we need a lot more business. I think we need 3 more players, probably. I did a video like 2 weeks ago saying we needed 4 players. Arguably, we've got 2, but we haven't really got 2 because we got Ruben, who's like a bit of a backup left back, a bit like I can't count you as a. So I would say 3 if I'm sticking to my plan, so to say. I actually think just James Tarkowski alone keeps us up. And let me explain why. I think if you had James Tarkowski in that team last year, you would gain 9, 12 points. And because there's multiple mistakes made by our centre-backs, and there's multiple chances he would have created or scored, which would have led us to get, stay up comfortably. So I think it's been a success in that regard. And the fact we got James Tarkowski on a free, brilliant business. Ruben on a loan with an option to buy, brilliant business. McNeil, I think you got to read. I think you got to read under the sun, so to say. You know what I mean? Like you got to look past the sun in a way. You can't just look at it at face value. You've got to see it as we're probably signing for 5 million and then paying 10 million later on. You know what I mean? It's sort of a hidden deal.
It's a good piece of, financially it makes sense, and that's probably what some Everton supporters don't understand. We want Maxwell Cornet. We think his statistics would match what Richarlison had for Everton, and that's the biggest issue with this transfer window. it's not even just different areas around the park. There's also Richarlison. We need to replace him, but replacing him is going to be very difficult to do. We've had names such as Emmanuel Dennis, Maxwell Cornet that have been linked as that long-term replacement for Richarlison, but financially, Maxwell Cornet could be a risky one for us. Everton have got to be very careful with how we approach. And I think the financial side of Dwight McNeil makes sense. The only worry for Everton supporters with Dwight McNeil is, he's got Richarlison's number 7. Is he looked upon as the replacement for Richarlison? And I don't know how you feel about Dwight McNeil being that sort of solution to Richarlison, because I'm not too sure about it.
No, he's nowhere near Richarlison. He's nothing. He is not like Richarlison. And individually, each piece of business is good business. Can I just say that now? We've got a 23-year-old, 22-year-old for what, 20? We've spent 20 million and signed 23-year-old, 22-year-old, and James Tarkowski, who I must say, I've been saying it many times, right? And I'm trying to stay consistent on points that I say, and I'm going to keep saying it. He is a level ahead of every other defender in our defence. I used to think Godfrey was the absolute creme de la creme of our defenders. My God, Tarkowski's something else, honestly. Yeah. And onto obviously McNeil and Richarlison, as you asked. He's nowhere near, because McNeil is a different style of player as Richarlison. McNeil is a creator. McNeil is not someone. McNeil goes onto the left, and before he goes to the box, he either crosses it in or he cuts in and then shoots. And you saw that against Dynamo Kiev. He did that exact thing. He either goes to the byline and crosses it in, or he goes in and shoots. Richarlison didn't do that. Richarlison was he's just a much different player. McNeil can't play up top. Richarlison can. I think a like-for-like replacement would be exactly Connor. He is perfect. I mean, 9 goals in about 2,000 minutes for a Burnley team. That was struggling for relegation. It's fantastic numbers. Even Dennis, to an extent, is a good signing. But I feel like we are not going to be going in for another winger. We're going to go in for a striker. Now, obviously, we'll go on to Dom in a bit, but I assume we are anyway. But yeah. I think the Richarlison replacement's been done now, unfortunately. Even though on paper it's not, the board will think it's done, and we're going to go and get a centre mid or a striker instead, and we're not going to address that position. And that is the age-old problem at Everton, is that the board don't know what to do, and Frank's sitting there going, I can't really do that much, because I wanted McNeil, but I didn't want him as the replacement for Richarlison. So,
the transfer window up to this point has been very messy. We started off the transfer window well. James Tarkowski. I mean, if I was to say James Tarkowski at the start of this campaign, I would say absolutely, because he is, yes, obviously he's 29 years old, but he's a leader. He's got Premier League experience. He's not injury prone. Over the last few years that he's been at Burnley, he's been in that squad week in, week out. So you've got someone who knows how to avoid injuries, which has been an issue from this Everton defense. The likes of Seamus Coleman, Yerry Mina especially, Ben Godfrey have had injuries in the past with Everton. And unfortunately, with players like Seamus Coleman, once they come back from those injuries, they're not the same player. Now, to be fair, obviously with Seamus Coleman's injury all those years ago against Wales, that was a shocking injury, and for almost most players, when they get an injury like that, they don't recover from it. Some of them never play football again. Some of them will come back but not be the same player. It's very much like Andrew Gomez. When he had his injury, he's not been the same since. Luke Shaw, for example, at Man United, once he got that leg injury, was never the same, never got into that United squad. But injuries have been an issue for this defense. And I think James Tarkowski, with everything he's got, is a great signing, especially on a free. 2-3 years ago, he was wanted by United for £50 million, and now we've got him on a free transfer. I think it's a fantastic piece of business. But as mentioned, for a few weeks there was very little activity. It was very quiet. Everton supporters were concerned. We were losing 2-0 to Arsenal, 4-0 to Minnesota.
Can I just say what my title was for Minnesota? It was Delete the Club. That was my title, because that is how annoyed I was at the game. Like all this build up to, like, we lost 2 on the bounce in the USA. Why the hell we went to the USA? I don't know. That last season, right?
All we did was go to America and prove the Americans we don't know how to play football. But that's all we did.
Go on.
And what kind of team does that sort of branding over in the USA? We're not an Arsenal or Man United that can go over to the USA and
Yeah.
say, "Oh, look at us, we're the big boys." We used to be one of the big boys, and we're still a big club. Of course, we are. It doesn't matter what happens to us in a few years' time. We're still always going to be a big club historically. But we went over to the USA, and boy, that even just that match alone against Minnesota United.
Yeah.
I know Minnesota are, going through their MLS campaign, and fair enough to them. They were very good against us, but that's not good from Everton's side of things. And I don't like dwelling over preseason results because if we had lost that match 4-0 against Minnesota, but we saw some really, really good performances from the likes of Dele Alli and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'd be able to say, yes, we need to improve in certain areas, but for the most part, there were some good things from it. There was no positives against Minnesota. And against Arsenal, in all fairness, we saw Lewis Warrington and Stanley Mills and James Tarkowski impress in the second half. But against Minnesota, there was absolutely nothing going for us.
Yeah, and you know what I will actually say about preseason, and I reflected on preseason about 3-4 days ago, and what I actually now look back and I go, okay, the time in the USA wasn't great, but we've got to take it with a pinch of salt because even though we've got sour taste in our mouth, it was against Arsenal. We were phenomenal, and that Minnesota game, I think it was down. I'm going to sound like a right delusional fan here. I swear I'm not. The climate is different, firstly, and the players, fitness-wise, were nowhere near. They've been on 6 weeks holidays, so imagine you went on a 6-week holiday. You came to the USA. You're not even at home, right? You're in the USA, different time zones as well, right? And you're playing in a different climate. No excuse for the result, but with the Blackpool game and the Dynamo Kiev game, certain players may justify why they were so bad in that game against Minnesota. And those two games made me a bit more positive about going forward. And those two games made me feel, okay, we're not going to get relegated, but we're not good enough to go and push on for anything yet.
Absolutely. And we'll get on to the Premier League later on, but that preseason in general, it's kind of been a bit back and forth up to this point. Preseason, the transfer window, those have been two sides of what Everton supporters up to this point have been worrying about. We had a poor preseason over in the USA. It was only until Blackpool when we started to, start showing something in the transfer window. Of course, we went over to Blackpool by the seaside, 1-4-2, really good results. There were good things to take from that result. We saw the likes of Patterson and Mikolenko, who I thought were quite poor over in the USA. I thought they were quite impressive. And Dele Alli, preseason or not, just to get those 2 goals is good for his confidence. I think for Dele Alli for this season, it's going to be very important for him. And we'll talk about him later on once we get past the transfer window and preseason. But if
I've got a wild theory on Dele this season. I don't think you're ready for it when we talk about it. So
we'll talk about that in a moment. Just to let everyone know, I have no idea what this theory is about, and I can't wait because mostly Kieran's theories tend to be really, really good. But we'll talk about that in a moment.
All right, good. What we go on then?
Right. So to evaluate preseason, yes, it was very, very lackluster. I think that preseason showed what we need desperately to improve. And I'll get your final side on preseason in a moment, but this is my evaluation of it. Defensively, with James Tarkowski, he's a good addition to the team, but it's still a defense that is very much like what we saw last season. It's very leaky, even against Dynamo Kiev. Even though we kept a clean sheet, at times it was wayward passing, getting ourselves into trouble. We looked nervous at times when they were in the final third. But James Tarkowski, as an addition to this team, is good because he's got that leadership, he's got that Premier League experience. He's what we needed from last season. But defensively, this team is still all over the place. And as mentioned, against Blackpool, I thought Mikolenko and Patterson were quite good. I thought going forward, they created chances. Defensively, still need to improve from the likes of Patterson. I think Patterson, it's difficult for Patterson. He's been introduced into this Everton squad for the first time this preseason because last year he was out of training and out of the season because of injury. He's not really had a chance to work within this Frank Lampard squad. So he's practically like a new signing for this preseason for Frank Lampard. I think Patterson is a really good replacement for Seamus Coleman, but I would still, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I still think Seamus Coleman or someone like Ben Godfrey needs to be out on that right-hand side for at least the first few weeks of the season, because I still think Patterson in some areas is a bit, defensively especially. I think going forward, he can look really good, but over in the USA, I saw him making some really bad mistakes. Like he'd get caught halfway up the field, lose possession, and not have the ability to run back and support the defense. I think going forward he's good, but defensively still needs to improve.
Okay, I've got 2 points on that.
Yeah,
and I understand Coleman is an Everton legend, and I love Coleman as much as an ex-Everton fan. But doesn't Coleman have the same defensive mistakes as Patterson does right now at his age? But like, if you compare Coleman and Patterson, they both make mistakes, but Patterson is about 10 years younger, probably got 10 times the pace as Coleman, and probably has that drive to actually. I think what you get in certain young players is a drive to want to prove yourself against every single winger. You know what I mean? If you're a fullback, you want to make sure you are the guy who is gonna you're not coming down my side. You know what I mean? I may be new here, but you're not gonna bully me. I feel like he's got that, and Coleman needs to take on some sort of coaching role. I rate Coleman I think Coleman and Baines were one of the most underrated fullback combinations in the history of the Premier League. And actually on Leighton Baines, I think Leighton Baines is one of the best left backs, bar Ashley Cole. So I've got ultimate respect for both of them. But right now, I just think Patterson does I think Patterson does the exact same as Coleman. He's got the exact same ability, but he's just a little bit more inexperienced. Also, who would you trust in a back five more? Because this is the formation but this is the formation we're probably going to go with
at some
the
point.
amount of signings we made in the first 5 weeks or so. I think we're going to play a back five. Who would you prefer? Would you prefer Coleman or would you prefer Patterson?
I mean, let's just assume that against Chelsea, there might be a point where we do a back five, because as we're going to get onto Chelsea later, our attack looks very, very slim against Chelsea for this one. We might opt for a back five, which I'm not too sure I'm too comfortable about, because, well, even with the midfield, we have to wait and see how that fares up in a back five. But for a back five against Chelsea, assuming, well, it's likely that Seamus might not even be around for the game against Chelsea. We don't know what his injury situation is, but I'm not saying I wouldn't want Patterson in there, because last year when Patterson was available for the few weeks that he was, I wanted him in there over Seamus Coleman. Not because, like, Seamus Coleman is far and away my favorite player within this Everton squad, and that's for obvious reasons, but I can't deny that Seamus is far past his best. You saw that last year. You know, there were some matches. I would take the perfect example of Seamus Coleman last year was the game against Crystal Palace. First half, he was absolutely atrocious, made a mistake for the second goal, and every time he got forward, he lost possession and he made himself look like an absolute fool. But second half, he was a leader in that defense. He created chances, and like the rest of that Everton squad in the second half helped Everton avoid relegation. But that's like the story of his entire season. You get the good side of Seamus sometimes, but then the other side of Seamus where defensively he's lackluster, and going forward he's not creating anything as he should be doing. So to answer that sort of question is a tough one, because Patterson, he's inexperienced. You can't judge him over 4 preseason matches. If I was to judge him over 4 preseason matches, I would say he still needs a lot of time to develop under Frank Lampard. But the good thing about Frank Lampard is, like the rest of these signings that we've made with Dwight McNeil, I feel like he will develop well under Frank Lampard, but it's going to take some time. So if he starts against Chelsea, I'm fine with that, but I think that could possibly be a place where Chelsea try and hit us most out on those wings, because they got the likes of Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling on his day against Everton, regardless of whether it's for the likes of Liverpool or Man City, he always runs us ragged. And I worry about that against Chelsea in a few days' time. I think like Raheem Sterling could be the vocal point for that Chelsea attack against Everton in a few days' time. And I think Patterson might be subject to a lot of trouble in that match. Going forward, he could be very problematic for this Chelsea defense, but defensively, I'm not too sure.
No, I understand that, and I think that I had the same. I think I came on. I don't know what stream it was, but I came on and said, I don't want Patterson starting next year. I think we need another right back. And I've watched these preseason games, and I've sort of assessed now that we don't have a choice.
Yeah,
Coleman's not playing a whole preseason.
Yeah, Coleman might not be available.
Coleman's off featured once. I can't sit here and say that he should start. He'd look out of his depth more than Patterson would. I'd actually start Stanley Mills over Coleman. And that is how concerned I am for Coleman's fitness. Because I don't know. I love Seamus, but this is like, when you put your nan in a care room, because it's what's best for them. I would put Seamus as a coaching role. Because he just do something better. If he wants to stay on in the Premier League, you're not going to find it at any other club. He would not even get near a starting 11 in any other club. It's only because he's an Everton legend. And fair enough, he is definitely earned. It's sitting on the bench and earning a wage. I'm not saying he hasn't, but it depends what Seamus wants in his career now. Does he want to start still? If he does, he'll have to go to a lower level or go to the MLS or something. If he wants to stay at Everton, he won't be starting. And I think it'd be best for him just to have a coaching role because he's not an impact sub. You know what I mean?
Go on.
No, okay, all right. Well, what I will say is the thing that Coleman provides is obviously his leadership.
Yeah, of course.
But I think I'm going to go on a whim, but I actually think Tarkowski could take that role. I'm genuinely blown away at how good Tarkowski is.
Yeah.
We should have. I don't know how Burnley have kept him under wraps for about 3 years. He should have left 3 years ago because he's untapped potential. And I actually think Tarkowski, maybe Pickford. I think Pickford's maybe a bit too hot-headed, but one of them could take on the captaincy role over Coleman. And we'll see, man. We'll see. I think it's still a week or so. Michaelenko I've got no problems with.
Yeah.
I don't think you have either. And that left-hand side, Sam, no. It's that right-hand side. And that midfield, obviously, it's
all over the place.
It is all over the place, it is. I don't even know who could start in that centre mid. So, I mean, it depends what we'll go into next, but we'll go on.
Yeah, well, I'll end by saying with regards to Seamus, I agree with what you say. I think next year he will pursue a coaching role, and hopefully it'll be within Everton because he is a leader. He's a great player. But now I think at this point, especially for the 22-23 season, he's at best a backup. He's a good leader to have in that back room, and that's a massive benefit with having someone like Seamus there. Even Lampard said it himself. He's far and away one of the best men around in the Premier League. You can't deny that. It's just unfortunate that he's at that age now where I don't think he's worthy of being within that first team squad. Now there's competition there from the likes of Patterson. Patterson needs to take that spot over this season, whether it's at the start of the season or by the mere end of the season. I think Seamus Coleman at best, especially considering he's missed out on an entire preseason, will have to settle for the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup for now. But, it's one of those with Seamus because he is an Everton legend. He's a great leader, one of the best leaders in the Premier League far and away. But to get into that first team squad, and even if he was to start against Chelsea, the same issue. Raheem Sterling could run him ragged. It's a difficult. I don't want to be like this.
Good, bro. I'm just. It's not.
Well, you need is Stanley Mills Scouse? Do you know?
Don't know. He can be if he wants. You know what I mean?
Well, let's just assume that he was Scouse. He may work well against someone like Raheem Sterling, but
two for him.
Yes. Well, James Tarkowski actually, I think, could cause Raheem Sterling a lot of trouble.
Yeah, put Tarky at right centre back with it. I'd actually put Godfrey at right centre back and then put Tarky in the middle. That's what I would do. I'd put Godfrey just to slide him.
But that's what I also mentioned as well, is that Ben Godfrey could potentially be an option out on that right. But I think for the most part, Patterson does need that chance. He needs to impress under Lampard. It's just whether he does it at the start of the season or by the end of the season, I'm not too sure. But yeah, we've kind of gone over so far pre-season, the transfer window up to this point. You mentioned as well the other players that we signed, as well as what we need to do now in this transfer window to make it a somewhat good transfer window, because this transfer window is far from over. And you've gone over some of the signings we've made. Tarkowski, we've spoken about. Ruben Vinagre, you said, is a good loan option, good backup to Mikalenko. I can't disagree with that. If his option to buy is a reasonable fee, and listen, maybe he'll turn out to be a good signing for us, but just a backup, nothing to be that excited about. The only thing I would say with Vinagre, I don't know if Lampard's going to try and experiment with him, try to push him further up the pitch. I don't know what would be your thoughts on that, because in all honesty, Ruben Vinagre has always been a left back, but he also can play in a left midfield role. Would try and have this thought. Alex Iwobi was moved to midfield. He did well in midfield. Would Ruben Vinagre possibly be moved into some different type of role that he's not used to? Could he work in that sort of role? Because, from what I've seen of him at Sporting and Wolves, he does have a lot of skill. He's got good pace to him. He's also got a good pass on him, good cross. He's got what you want in a left back or left winger, but, he's not very versatile, which is the only issue I have with him. So do you think Frank Lampard would ever try to work with him in different positions?
He just screams like a left wing back, doesn't he? I just get the feeling that it's not gonna be too radical, but I think we're gonna line up with a 3-4-3 next year. And I don't know when this sort of our formation will. I'm not sure if we're saying it for the Chelsea preview, but I'd say a 3-4-3 is the best formation we could probably go with this season.
I'm not too comfortable with a 5 at the back, because I saw against Dynamo Kiev, 5. It was almost like a 5-2-3 that we were going with.
I would personally, I would go for 4-3-3, but I've got a bit of a theory about it. It ties in my theory to Delhi, so I'll have to sort of explain that in a bit.
Yes.
Whenever it may be. But I think left wing back just screams left wing back to me. I just feel like 3-4-3 is like what we are going to play that formation, because then Ruben can play left wing back or he can play left mid if need be. But I don't know why he would, because Dwight McNeil is probably going to be there. Yeah. So Dwight McNeil is definitely playing left wing, by the way. If anyone thinks he's going to play right wing, 96% of his touches are from left wing.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't have a good right foot.
Sorry, it wasn't left wing. It was left foot. 96% of his touches are left foot. That's what.
Yeah, he's got a wonderful left foot, but for a right foot, it's not great. So, yeah, but Ruben Vinagre, maybe Frank Lampard will try to use him in a different way, but he's mainly going to be a backup. He could be a good option off the bench if we need someone out on that wing who's got that kind of cross on him. But as a backup, useful enough, financially not a big worry for us. Who was the other signing? Dwight McNeil, of course. We've already touched on him a bit, and we'll probably mention him for the next 2 minutes. I'm not comfortable with him being the possible replacement for Richarlison, even though that's kind of what he's been almost made to do as things currently stand. We are interested in Maxwell Cornet and possibly Emmanuel Dennis, but I don't think with how Everton have fared up in this transfer window that we'll be able to go and get them. Dwight McNeil might end up just being the replacement of Richarlison, whether we like it or not. Statistically last year, not great. Just 1 goal over an entire Premier League season. He scored more goals in 20 minutes against Dynamo Kiev than he did for Burnley last year. But
Frank Lampard effect, mate. You know what I mean? He's gonna score 10 goals this year.
Let's not forget, we bought Richarlison from a very ragged Watford team. He was left on the bench against Chelsea. He was crying. He wanted to leave. He wasn't happy with not being able to play football at Watford. He came to Everton for £50 million. Seemed like Everton supporters were pleased with the signing, but at the same time there was some skepticism about £50 million for someone who wasn't that impressive with Watford. And he turned out to be one of the best players we've had over the last few years. Dwight McNeil could possibly have the same sort of story. And I think under Frank Lampard, I think he could really work out well. Is he going to live up to the same statistics of scoring 10 goals and 5 assists as Richarlison did last year? that is questionable. I really don't even know how that would work, but you never know because Frank Lampard has made Dwight McNeil his own signing. Dwight McNeil seems like the sort of player that Frank Lampard wants in that squad. So he could be a really good signing under Frank Lampard, but at the same time, I'm not too sure. As a replacement for Richarlison, doesn't live up with regards to the statistics, but as mentioned, 15 million pounds seemed like a good deal for Everton from a relegated Burnley team. But as a replacement for Richarlison, Everton supporters aren't too keen on that.
Well, I'll just say before we move on to the Chelsea game or whatever we may talk about now, our best players came from relegated clubs: Sunderland, Pickford, Godfrey, Norwich, Richarlison, Watford, and I'm sure there's a few others there that I've missed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gordon fell. Gordon was obviously being at Everton for a while, but he failed at Preston on loan. Didn't score any goals or got any assists, then came back and he was phenomenal. So it's all just up in the air. I mean, it's all down to the environment and the manager. That's the main thing about whether a player does well or not. I've seen players who have been phenomenal for certain managers, and then next thing you know, they're just playing awful because they've lost their confidence, or the manager's lost their confidence in the player. So yeah, it'll be interesting regardless. So we'll have to see.
Right, so before we head on to Chelsea, the great match against Chelsea, I'll just end by asking, you've kind of already touched on it, but what needs to be done now until the end of the transfer window for it to be a good transfer window? And I'll let you speak in a moment. What I say is this transfer window still needs a lot of work done to it. Midfield still needs improving. Hopefully over the next few days before the match against Chelsea, we'll hear the official announcement of Idrissa Gana Gueye. I think as a signing, makes sense. He is 32 years old. 2 3-year contract would make sense for him, but you've got someone there that we've needed from last season. Unfortunately, I don't think Alan has been, well, he wasn't that impressive last year, but then again, who in that midfield was all that good for us defensively? But he could work well alongside the likes of Decore. Ghana is the good defensive midfielder. Abdoulaye Decore can be the workhorse within that midfield, and Dele Alli could possibly be that creative midfielder.
Go on. Dele's not playing in the midfield, mate. Don't you worry.
He's going to play as a striker. Well, he might. It's not out of the question. When we go into Chelsea,
we have a recognised striker right now, so you know what I mean. Yeah. Anyway, go on. How are you going to end that off?
I think he fits that midfield well. But that being said, even with the addition of Idrissa Gana Gueye, if it does happen, which seems almost certain that it will, we still need at least one more midfielder in there. Not even just for the sake of quality, but for depth. I know some Evertonians weren't too keen on the possible return of Ross Barkley. And while I wouldn't have been keen on Ross Barkley returning, I think Ross Barkley is an example of a midfielder that we do somewhat need. An attacking midfielder, someone that's opposite to Idrissa Gana Gueye in midfield, that can score goals, that can be like what Dele Alli does in midfield. Someone that's creative, someone that can score goals, that can support that striker, whatever striker Everton will have for this season. But midfield, hopefully we'll sort that out. 2 midfielders possibly. Sounds like we'll get Gana Gueye soon. We're looking at names such as Billy Gilmore. I'm not too sure about Billy Gilmore. He wasn't that impressive at Norwich last year, but under Frank Lampard, he's another signing that, like Dwight McNeil, could thrive under Frank Lampard. But ending on how to improve this transfer window, I wish I could say that we were going to go and get someone like Maxwell Cornet or Emmanuel Dennis. But I think due to the financial side of things, as well as Dwight McNeil seemingly being that solution to the Richarlison's issues, I'm not too sure whether we'll go get either of them. There's more appealing offers out there for someone like Maxwell Cornet. That's what worries me. But we'll get on to the striker in a moment because we don't have a striker. We don't have one. We needed a backup.
We do. We just don't know who it is. Yeah. Well, you don't. I do.
So, you do because you've got
I've got Frank's number now. You know what I mean?
You've got the inside knowledge. Yeah.
But go on. What are we thinking there?
All I'll say regarding the striker situation, and we're going to speak about this now after Kieran kind of gives his evaluation of what needs to improve over this transfer window. We have as Everton supporters have been saying, we need a backup striker because what happens if worst case scenario Dominic Calvert-Lewin is out for 2-3 months or a few weeks even, and we've only got someone like Rondon as our backup. Regardless of what you want to say, Kieran, about Salomon Rondon, I don't expect him to score more than 5 goals for Everton next season. I just don't see it.
5 more than Martial, mate. So that's all.
That's true. But
no, Rondon's suspended for the first game, so I'm not even doing the Rondon stuff. I've got someone else in mind. Assessment on the transfer window, though. Before we move on to striker, we need a CDM, which is Garner Gay. Yes. I think the band is going to do quite well this year, hopefully. So those two, master and apprentice sort of role, those two switching around. I think it works. You know what I mean?
The funny thing about Jean-Philippe, I don't even know how you say his last name anymore, Jabaman or whatever it is. Jamin. I've said it so many different ways, but he is almost like he was like the replacement for Idrissa Gana Gueye. On paper, he looked like the perfect replacement. Yeah. And the thing about Jean that he has over Gana Gueye is that he has an attacking influence. We saw that at Mainz, but injury after injury after injury. Mm-hmm. If he had just been consistently fit, he would have been a fantastic signing for Everton. I think he would have adapted well to the Premier League, but injuries have just stopped him from having a career at Everton. But if he stays fit over this season and Frank Lampard uses him sensibly, him, Decore, Gana Gueye, and possibly Allen would be a fantastic midfield. I think it would be a very well-organised midfield, but that is whether Jean-Philippe is actually in Frank Lampard's plans, which I'd like to think he would be, but how he's used, I'm not too sure how Frank Lampard's going to use him.
I think he's a holding mid. I personally think of him and Garner as a master apprentice sort of role. Swap them around every week or so, make sure they're both fit, and then you have Decore as your runner, and then you have your creative mids and you have Iwobi as your runner as well. You've got a few options, but the players I would sign is Garner Gay, Gibbs White, Cornet. We're talented Burnley now, aren't we? If it wasn't Cornet, if it was someone else, I'd actually go in for Brozier. Just go for it, mate. Honestly, it's very unproven. No.
It makes sense.
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Right. Timo Werner on loan.
Smart. I mean, it's not out of the question.
It's doable.
It's doable.
Frank signed him before.
Werner
probably doesn't mind. I mean, I don't think he'd mind coming to Everton for a year.
He's getting sick and tired of Chelsea.
What's Werner getting out of it? Confidence. Starting 11. He'll be in our starting 11 straight away.
Oh, he would.
What are we getting out of it? A striker straight away. Someone who could actually play potentially on the wing as well. Okay, Werner's not getting Champions League football, but he'd be playing 38 games if he could stay fit. It's a deal that works for both parties if it's a loan. And don't call me psycho in the comments, right? It works, and don't tell me otherwise because it does on paper. Both parties want it. Timo wants his confidence. We want a goal scorer. Boom. Put it together. It is fantastic. 5. So, that's what I would do. Werner, Gibbs White, and Garner Gay.
So it's still a busy enough transfer window, but yeah, that's we finally, after 40 minutes, got through the transfer window. Are you happy now?
I am not happy with our transfer business because we need to actually do it. Start talking about it. Let's do something.
Sign some players.
Yeah. Sign some players.
Whoever can.
But we don't need a striker. Look, let's be honest here, Sam.
Yeah.
We're missing someone here. And you've overlooked him. We're not going to play a striker this year. We don't need a striker role. We're going to play a false nine.
Yeah, possibly.
Do you know who's going to be in that false nine?
Right, tell me, please.
Dele.
Yeah.
Lampard's done it twice already this season. He did it against Blackpool and he did it against Dynamo Kiev. Mm-hmm. We next year are playing a false 9, 4-3. If it's not 5 back, 4-3-3 for your FIFA merchants out there. 4-3-3-5, flying false 9, and we're having an overloaded midfield.
Yes.
I tell you now, this is what's going to happen. This is my Dele theory, right? He's going to start in, week out, as that false 9, and he's going to thrive. He's absolutely going to thrive because the way our wingers work, it accommodates not having a striker. I think Gordon and McNeil will probably do better without a striker there, and then being able to progress on. and then potentially have an option behind them rather than have an option in front of them. I just feel like it's the natural path to either go 3-4-3 with a false 9 or 4-3-3 with a false 9. So that's what I think. That's my 2 pence. What do you think about that, Sam?
That would be some approach, but I mean, it makes sense. Dele Alli needs to be that creative player for us, and he could possibly be the solution to the issues of not having a Richarlison and possibly not having Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because we don't even know what the hell's going on with Dominic at this point. But he could possibly that. I mean,
Well,
that wouldn't surprise me.
Sam, we don't press from the front.
Yeah.
If there's no, in my opinion, I don't think there's any point in having a striker if you're not going to press on the front. The problem is we get overloaded in midfield, and we tend to have a 3-on-2 or a 4-on-3. The way you counter that is by not having someone up front who's not going to do anything. Dom sits up front and does absolutely nothing for 90 minutes. Rondon sits up top, and to be fair to Rondon, right? Rondon presses more than Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I'm not even taking the mick here, right? Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been that bad this preseason. Rondon has been better than Dominic Calvert-Lewin this preseason. Because
at least he got an assist. He's a workhorse. Yeah,
he presses the ball, but we potentially don't need that. If we have Dele as a false 9, most of our goals come from the wings anyway. We just need an overload in midfield. So, games are won with overloads. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Go on.
At this point, like me and you have kind of come to the conclusion that I've seen Dominic over this preseason, and you've done your watch longs with this Everton team. Like you even stayed awake until probably like 4 o'clock watching Minnesota United. But we saw against those teams over that entire preseason, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was non-existent. It was like playing with 10 men from the very start of the match when Dominic was starting, at least against Blackpool. And I'm not someone to give Rondon a lot of praise, but against Blackpool, he got an assist. He was working hard. He was trying to create chances. And you know what? He even technically set up the third goal. It was a good save from the keeper. Fell to Dele Alli, and it was a tap-in from. He wasn't going to miss.
He got into position. Difference between Dominic and Rondon is 2 things. Rondon presses, Dominic doesn't. Yeah. Rondon gets into the spaces, Dominic doesn't. So what is Dominic actually doing? He's doing absolutely nothing on the pitch. That's my problem. He didn't have a shot. Why do you think he's not had a shot? Not creativity, because Rondon had 2 shots. 3,000 minutes a game, he had 2 shots.
Yes.
This Blackpool, he had multiple shots. Right? Why was Dominic not getting any shots? Because Rondon got into positions that Dominic didn't. And I've had enough of Dominic now. Right? I don't want to get on his case, right? Okay. But him and Tom Davis, right? Okay. No wonder a lot of Everton fans get on their backs whenever they do their PR stunts and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a problem with them going on magazines and whatnot.
I
remember I was on Sky Sports watching this Everton game against I don't know who it was against. It was last season. We were watching an Everton game, right? We lost. Dominic was the worst player on the pitch. The first ad that came up was a Gillette ad, and it was Dominic Calvert-Lewin's face.
It was. Yeah.
You probably remember that as well.
I do.
You know what I mean? It's just one of them where I've had enough of Dominic now, right? And if Rondon's outperforming you, and that's not even me joking. I've got some serious concerns, honestly. So, Timo Werner in.
Yeah. Dominic at this point. I mean, right, for those who need clarification, yesterday we heard from El Bobble, Dominic Calvert-Lewin might be out for the match against Chelsea. And I thought to myself, oh, for God's sakes, it's happened again. And I thought to myself, okay, that's not good. Because against Chelsea, and we're going to speak on Chelsea at this point, against Chelsea, we don't have Richarlison. We don't have Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We don't have Rondon. We're going to probably be sending Sims and Dobbin out on loan. So we got no striker. We've really not got that much attacking creativity unless someone like Dele Alli, Dwight McNeil or Anthony Gordon is used in a sort of way that can be the solution to that missing goal from the likes of Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Because over the years I've seen against Chelsea hate our strikers. They hate it when they play against Dominic and Richarlison. They find it absolute hell to defend against us when we've got those 2 up front. But now we don't have them, and our attack is just looking so... It doesn't look well prepared against Chelsea. And look at their attack compared to ours, Defensively, maybe we'll fare up well against Chelsea, but from the attack, who's going to get the goals for us against Chelsea?
Chelsea will hammer us.
I wouldn't use the word hammer because I know what Chelsea are like. I think
Maybe 6-2.
they always find a way to mess it up against us. But at this point now, we've not got a striker. We've not really got a good attack going for us against Chelsea. And Chelsea themselves, they've got ambitions of Champions League football. Raheem Sterling, who always scores against us. It's not looking good for us. But the only silver lining is that Chelsea have a terrible record against us over the last few years. No matter how bad we play ahead of a match against Chelsea, they always find a way to screw it up. And against Everton last year, they messed it up terribly. Defensive mistakes, not finding the goal. Jordan Pickford being an absolute savior. They just didn't find a way for us. But in this match, I just can't help but feel worried against Chelsea.
It's a hard one because just thinking back to our record now, we past 3 games, we've won 2, drawn 1, haven't we? And then lost 1 as well. And I always go into Chelsea games a little bit nervous, but I just don't know what to. I don't know what to expect with this Everton team. We're not getting relegated, but we're not gonna be down in the. I don't.
That's famous last words, Dad. That's famous last words.
It's hard to describe what I think what's going to happen because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know I don't even know what formation we're going to play. I don't know what players we're going to play.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to pick up points.
And it goes back to what I asked at the very start of this preview. Are Everton ready for this season? No. And the simple answer is no. We don't know what formation we're going with. We don't know how we're going to line up against Chelsea. We've got injuries left, right, and centre. We've still got transfer window where we need at least another 2-3 more signings. Yeah. Everton are not well prepared for this match against Chelsea. But to end on Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because it's worth mentioning, yes, I thought to myself, against Chelsea, he's going to be missing. That's a disappointment because before the match, I thought to myself, before the news of Dominic getting injured, I thought to myself, I think we might actually get something against Chelsea because they don't like it when someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin is up front. They have terrible strikers themselves, but once they go up against someone like Dominic, they struggle. But we got no striker now, no attacking influence. Dominic, we've not heard anything, as far as I'm concerned. We've not heard anything as of this recording about how serious the injury is.
I raised my hand.
Right, go on.
1 month.
1 month.
Paul Joyce, that was 1 month, yeah. 1 month.
Right. That's not good, because I was hearing, at first I thought it was just going to be Chelsea, and then when El Bobo said, he's going to get a scan over in London, I thought to myself, okay, he's going to be out for a few weeks. Yeah. There was some suggestions that he'd be out for a few months from some sources that didn't really have much knowledge in the first place. Now that Paul Joyce has said that, a month out, not good, considering we've got no strikers against Chelsea, Aston Villa, for the whole month of August. We possibly might not have a striker. So, we mentioned Dele Alli, of course, but...
Well, listen, this is the thing. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And if I was manager, there's 2 ways I'd go about it. I'd either put Rondon up top, but you can't do that against Chelsea because he's suspended. If anyone remembers this. Does anyone remember that game against Brentford that he got suspended on? Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
He runs on the pitch. He's on there for 2 minutes.
Clatters
someone. Runs off, claps the fans as he runs.
I think even
like that as well.
Yeah, even he thought himself that's probably the last time he'll probably be on the pitch for us. But now it just seems
honestly get Timo Werner in.
Yeah,
tap him up. Tap him up.
Yeah, we need someone. We need someone.
It's so doable, and people don't realize this. Franco and Werner have a relationship.
Yeah.
Chelsea and Everton have a relationship. It suits both parties because if they get Werner off the books, they can then go and get another striker, or they can go and get someone different. Werner's not starting it. Werner will not start in that game against us. It will be Havertz, Havertz, Mount, and Sterling. That will be the front 3 that we go up against.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Timo won't be in there. I actually think Brozier might get a chance over Werner. He's really out of favour with Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah, it's
Why
really
not
out.
let him?
It's
You know
out
what
of
I
the
mean?
question at this
So
point.
it makes perfect sense. In my head, it makes perfect sense, but it won't happen because we're Everton and this is not FIFA career mode. And yeah,
But-
and unfortunately, you know, we can say it as much as we want, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, we'll see, Sam, won't we? We'll see at the end of the season. We might be sitting here being like, oh, we're Champions League winners now. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's very unlikely.
Champions League, come on.
Champions.
Yeah,
But
we're champions. I actually did look at. If you did see, I did look at Leicester's pre-season record. You know when it was 2016 season. Unfortunately,
yes,
they won all of their games, so it didn't match our pre-season.
yeah, no, exactly.
So we'll see anyway, Sam, won't we? We'll see.
Yeah, but before we end this, all I'll say is that injury with Dominic is the classic example of the transfer window we've had up to this point. Why has it taken for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to be out for a month for us to actually start acting and start looking for a backup to Dominic? Why? I mean, whether we're actually interested in Michy Batshuayi or not, Michy Batshuayi makes sense as a signing for us. We could potentially get him on a good fee. He's Premier League experience. I know some Evertonians aren't too keen on him, but to be honest, we can't really be choosing who we want because financially we don't have the ability to go out and sign who we want. You know, we're having to pick at some of Chelsea's deadwood, which is the likes of Armando Broja, Billy Gilmore, those sort of players. We don't really have a choice in the matter. So getting someone like Michy Batshuayi, whether you like it or not, makes sense as a signing because he's a good backup to someone like Dominic. And Dominic, I just don't have the faith that he's going to be that 20 goal season striker for us. He has the potential to, but from what I saw last season and what we've already seen from him in the last 24 hours, I'm not building up the confidence that he's going to be that solution. And the worst thing about it, I'll end on this. In preseason, he had no support around him. Without Richarlison, he can't create chances for himself. He can't score goals. It's not like Lukaku. Lukaku, when he was at Everton, could get the ball in midfield, drive, and score a goal for himself. Dominic needs a good ball into the box to score goals. And sadly, at the moment, we've not really got those sort of winners in the team.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Gordon, Dwight McNeil can turn up on their day, but as support for Dominic, I don't think it really works, especially considering we don't have Richarlison anymore.
Well, it's all the game plan. The reason why he works so well under Ancelotti is because we had James, Richarlison, and Digne.
Yes,
And
a really well set up team.
Gordon didn't start under Ancelotti.
Mm-hmm.
McNeil wasn't there either.
Yeah,
Patton wasn't there. Michael
Damari Gray wasn't there.
This is a radically different team to the Ancelotti one. Radically different. Do you know who started in our midfield too when we won 2-0 against Liverpool?
Oh, I can't remember.
This is not a trick question, but this is like this just tells you everything you need to know. The two, well, I think we played the 4-3-3, didn't we? But two that stood out were Andre Gomez and Tom Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Now go search it up, fact check it. I swear that was the midfield we played against Liverpool.
It possibly was. It wouldn't surprise me either. Because around that time we had a lot of injuries.
We had. It sounds like our match of like our final, but
yes,
Pickford, Coleman, Digne, Keane. I think Godfrey was playing. Mm-hmm. Gomez, Tom. Decore because Alan was injured the day. Do you remember the day before Alan? Alan, Dominic Calvert-Lewin got injured, and then we had a front three of Richarlison, James, and someone else, but I don't know who played left wing. And that team is a radically different team to the one you're seeing right now.
Oh, massively! There's not even a comparison.
My point is, you shouldn't have the same expectations now.
Yeah.
You shouldn't drop your expectations, but you shouldn't have the same expectations as that Ancelotti team because that Ancelotti team was actually a lot better than people give it credit for.
Carlo Ancelotti can turn someone like Tom Davis into a good midfielder. Yeah. Frank Lampard, as much praise as we give him, is not Carlo Ancelotti. they're two completely different fellas. Carlo Ancelotti is one of the greatest managers in European football. Frank Lampard, with all due respect, is still getting used to managerial football, and this is probably the biggest task he's ever going to have in his managerial career. He got over the first hurdle last season, but this hurdle is going to be a big one. And I'm looking at the fixtures we've got at the start of the season. I've just got them in front of me here. The first five, Chelsea at home, Villa away, Nottingham at home, and then 2 away days to Brentford and Leeds. Out of those 5 teams, there are 3 teams that could be potential relegation rivals to us, and 2 of those being away days. It could be a very, very difficult start to our season, especially now because we've got the injury of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We're still not well organised ahead of this Premier League season. We could be in for a very, very rough start. And even after those first 5 matches, we've then got Liverpool and Arsenal. Those first 7 games are worrying. And honestly, for a team like Everton, a home match against Nottingham shouldn't be worrying. But we're at this point now where we have to accept Nottingham could be a better team than us for this season. They could finish above us. I don't know where we're going to be this season. I think that we will avoid relegation, but I think we will be in a relegation battle because I haven't seen a much improved squad. I still think we're poorly organised. We will avoid relegation, but I think we're in a relegation battle because I was hoping at the start of this transfer window we would have done enough to be well prepared for this season that we'd finish mid-table, but now I'm just accepting we'll probably finish somewhere like 15th or 16th.
Yeah, I'll put us down 15th.
Your early...
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're going to ask me that, but I've put us down for 15th, and that is where we will finish. I don't see any other reason why we won't finish there. We're not worse than Brentford, Forest, Fulham, Bournemouth, and Southampton. But we're not better than Villa, Brighton, and all them lot. So 15th is the right place, man. It's unfortunate, but it's what's going to have to happen.
Considering the away days we've had, like 3 of our 5 opening matches are away days, it would be very Everton for us to go and somehow win at home against Chelsea on the opening day and then go to Villa and lose 2-3-0. That's the way Everton operate. And when I look at those first few matches that we've got at the start of the season, I'm not all that sure. But it's you never know what you're going to get with Everton. It could be a new year or new season, same old Everton, or it could be we could be completely surprised. We could be the Leicester, the 15-16. I would say it's a 1 in a million chance, but it could happen. You never know.
I really wanted to say that we'd be the West Ham of all. Like, we'd be West Ham. We'll reincarnate what West Ham did, but I can't say. Oh, I could, but I can't because you haven't got midfielder.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to say is we'll finish mid-table and we end up getting relegated. Whether I know some Everton supporters are like, oh, you shouldn't be that negative. You should be like, oh, we will avoid relegation because we did it last year. We'll do it again. And this year we'll finish mid-table. But in all honesty, even with the additions of names such as James Tarkowski and Gana Gay, we are still got the same sort of squad. We're still not well organized. You see, before this match against Chelsea, we've got no real organized attack. Like, the defense is somewhat set up. The midfield still needs a lot of surgery done on it. The defense is the only area on the field, as things currently stand, where I would say we're well prepared against Chelsea. Other than that, though, we've not really got much going for us.
Yeah, but I'm going to say my final words now, I think.
Yes, because we've reached the hour mark.
Oh, I thought Jesus. I didn't realise that. No, I was just thinking, like, I'm gonna say it true because I feel like we're on a good point there with the defense.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be. I'm not sure. We are most ready. Our most ready. Sorry, let me say that. Our most ready position is defense.
Yes,
a defense which conceded dozens and dozens and dozens of goals last year and was our weakest part of the team.
Yeah,
and we consider that ready because we only signed 1 player.
Unfortunately, yes.
And that's exactly how I want to end it because that is the best way to sum up our transfer window and Everton. Yeah. We think we're ready because we've plastered our defence
with 1 player.
Over with 1 player.
Yeah. when in reality, that's the best business we've done. That's the best position we've worked on up to this point of our preseason. And with the rest of the squad, it's still completely all over the place. So, yeah, we're going to end on this note. I mean, you've given your prediction 15th. I'm going to say it's around 15th or 16th.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those supporters that will say we'll get relegated, but for me to say we'll avoid a relegation battle, I think would be idiotic because this Everton squad is still far and away very poorly organised compared to teams around us, such as Nottingham and Leeds. We're just still not well organised, but you never know what you'll get with Everton. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you, Kieran. It's been a good hour of conversation. I appreciate that you did take the time to come on. Yeah. And of course, I'll leave his YouTube channel as well as his Instagram and so on in the description for you to check him out. I'm sure most of you know who he is anyway. He's going to be doing a lot of coverage on Everton for the start of the Premier League season and throughout. So yeah, thank you very much, Kieran, for your time.
That's all good, Sam. Yeah, it's all good, and I'm excited to. I'm just excited to crack on with the season now.
Yeah, get it over.
I mean, tonight as we record, just got my prem predictions and ranking home kits. We're really in the spirit now of getting getting there. So yeah, thanks for having me on, and obviously I hope to come on again very soon.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be sure to get you on again soon. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you all very much for your continued support, and of course, I will see you all later.